Hello everyone. Let's begin with our today's lecture. So today we are supposed to go ahead with the doubt session. And as all of you are aware, this is a course that we are conducting on grammar that turns up on the CAT examination, XAT examination, IAFT, NMAT, SNAP, be it any entrance exam, you would face similar level of grammar. So this is common for all entrance tests. So we have taken three classes up till now pertaining to grammar. So we have taken the very first class was orientation to CAT. So that was like a basic understanding of what all is there on the CAT examination. Then we took this class on parts of speech. Then we took a class on cases of pronouns. And yesterday we took a class on subject verb agreement. Now I will wait for a while for you guys to come up with any doubts that you have faced. I'm sure you guys have watched these videos and you must have some doubts. It's natural to be questioning certain things and raising a few doubts pertaining to any concepts on grammar. So I would be waiting for you guys. I'm waiting for you guys to join in and ask your doubts, and I would be willing to revise you guys, give you a quick revision on these topics as well. So however you're comfortable, you can go ahead with it. I'll give you a quick introduction about myself. My name is Nitika Dawar. I have done my graduation and post graduation both in literature. I have more than 9 years of teaching experience. I have trained students all across India for various management exams. I'm also the 99 percentiler on the ZAR examination, and I've successfully launched an application based module in aptitude learning. So you can easily find it on Amazon and everything. Other than that, I would like to tell you how you guys can find me. So for example, you just have to download the Unacademy application. So just go to your Play School, Play Store, Google Store, or Apple Store, and type Unacademy Learning app, and then you can just simply install it. Once you're done installing it, the next step is that you have to register CAT as your plus course and as your goal. So you have to register CAT as your plus course and your goal. So once you have registered it like that, your next step is to get subscription. While you're trying to get subscription, you will see that there are various options which are available, which you can access and which you can use to get the subscription that suits you the most, with the 12 months and 24 months plan being the most lucrative ones, profitable ones. And there are no cost EMI options also available on 6 months, 12 months and 24 months plan. While going about the subscription, what you guys can do is you can use my referral code, which is Nitika, Nitika 10, and you will get a 10% discount of the fees which you're going for. There is a quick reminder that I would like to give you guys, that you can use this referral code not only for just going for my courses and my special classes, but for any course that you like. So an academy as an online learning platform offers a pool of faculties who are highly renowned and really successful in what they do. So all my fellow educators are doing a great job. Whatever course that appeals to you, definitely go ahead and get a subscription. Do not fail to apply the referral code in order to get a 10% off. Now, before we move forward, I would just wait for like 5-10 minutes for you guys to come up with any doubts that you have. So, we have covered these topics just like I discussed a while ago. All these topics have been covered. So, today's class is one of the perks that most of the students get when it comes down to getting an Unacademy Plus subscription. So you guys not only get live classes and you get to be a part of live polls and quizzes, but also you get to interact with your educators. And for example, today you get to get your doubts cleared. So today's session is purely for doubts. So as I mentioned, we did one session on parts of speech where we learnt about all the parts of speech, for example, articles, nouns, pronouns, prepositions, and we did adjectives and adverbs. If you guys have not understood any concept or you want me to repeat any concept, I would be more than happy to help you guys. The next session that we did was on cases of pronouns. In this session, we learned the application of pronouns, various cases where we have to end up applying pronouns in different logic. Along with that, we ended up learning three cases, which were subjective case, objective case, and reflexive case. And then the third class that we have taken, the concept topic that we have taken, is of subject verb agreement. In subject verb agreement, we learned somewhere around 15 rules of subject verb agreement, and then we ended up solving a few sentence correction questions. Right? So, you guys can ask away any doubts that you have pertaining to any of these subjects. For example, grammar altogether, how it has been taught to you guys in school is completely different from what is expected out of you on the aptitude learning level. So I can expect if you guys have some doubts, and I'll be happy to clear them off for you. I'll give you guys some time because I'm hoping you guys would join. So some of you are live. Do you guys have any doubts? So Vidur has some doubts here. Vidur is saying, ma'am, can you explain cases of pronouns once again? Definitely, we can do that. So probably you have attended or you've not attended the lecture here, but I'll just give you a basic idea. Take you back to that class. All right. So, while studying cases of pronouns, we understood that pronouns are of various types. This is what I had explained to you guys in the class. And pronouns are, used in a sentence in order to make sure that you guys are not repeating your nouns again and again. So, they do come in place of nouns. And why? Because to avoid repetition. So this is the reason why we use pronouns, and there are various types of pronouns. For example, there are indefinite pronouns, there are personal pronouns, there are relative pronouns, reflexive pronouns, interrogative, possessive. Many pronouns are there, but we really do not need this kind of knowledge when you're going for an aptitude exam. For an aptitude exam, will be tested on the basis of sentence correction. And since we are being tested on the basis of sentence correction, dear, we are supposed to be aware of the application of pronouns. Like when do I apply which pronoun and why? Okay, so we need to be aware of the application. So let's look at the application. We have a few sentences here, right? So we have a few sentences here, and these sentences are given, and we have to find out um, which of these are incorrect. So when I look at these sentences, any idea, Vidur, which sentences are incorrect out of these? So there are four sentences that I've mentioned in front of you. Can you tell me which ones are incorrect out of these? So you feel that the third sentence is incorrect, and why is that so? What should it be? They scored more runs than us is not right. So you feel the first one is also incorrect. So what's going wrong with the first, third, and the fourth one? Any idea, bache? What's going wrong with the sentences? So if you look at the first one, I think it's pretty obvious what's wrong with the first one. It says you and me are going to the market. Now you and me are going to the market. Very well, you have just replied that it should be you and I, but we often fail to see why it should be you and I, and we end up using you and me quite too often. And when it comes to you and I, we somehow do not understand why are we using you and me and in place of you and I. So we'll discuss that logic. Second sentence is correct, just like mentioned by you, dear. The third sentence is incorrect. But why is it incorrect? Any idea? All the students who are here, good afternoon. What should be wrong with the third sentence? Any idea? All right, let's discuss. So the third sentence is incorrect. Why? Because it says us. They have scored more runs than us. Now, I know you guys have been using this for a very long time, but it is incorrect. Why? Because it should be they scored more runs than we, not I, not us. Because over here in this case, this is how you guys have been learning to spell out sentences, and I know it sounds correct, incorrect for you guys, but eventually this is how the correct sentence has to be. So let's try to look at the fourth one. I'll give you the logic behind it. The fourth one says between you and me, I don't like him. So between you and me, I don't like him. This sentence is correct. There's nothing wrong with the fourth sentence, Whether only the first and the third ones were incorrect. That means they scored more runs than we. Why? Let's look at the very first case over here. The very first case of pronoun, which is known as the subjective case, is going to be explained to you guys in a matter of minute. So, for example, every sentence has what? Every sentence has a subject. सब्जेक्ट कौन होता है जिसके बारे में सेंटेंस में बात हो रही है सो द वन हु इज बीइंग टॉक्ड अबाउट इन द सेंटेंस इज नोन एज ए सब्जेक्ट एंड सब्जेक्ट डज व्हाट इन द सेंटेंस इट डज द action. So every sentence has a subject and subject does the action. So this is the kind of relationship that you would subjective pronoun. It is imperative to use a subjective pronoun. Now, what are subjective pronouns? These are your subjective pronouns. I, he, she, it, you, we, they, who, whoever. All these are what? Your subjective pronouns. So, what you need to remember is that in any sentence, when there is an action being done by a pronoun, we end up using the subjective pronouns. Now, coming back to these sentences that we had over here, why did we say it should be you and I are going to the market? Why? Because you are going to the market, fine. But I am also going to the market, right? So we don't say me is going to the market or me are going to the market. We say I am going. So because you and I both have been mentioned, that is the reason why we have used are, right? But then it will be I whenever the pronoun is doing the action. And we have just learned in this case that whenever the pronoun is doing the action, we have to use a subjective pronoun. Me to subjective pronoun hai hi nahi. So it has to be you and I are going to the market. So that's how we have made it. Let's look at the next sentence. Why did I say that the second sentence was correct? Second sentence has two pronouns, he and her. Now, in this sentence, this pronoun is doing the action, and hence we have used the subjective pronoun with it, he. So, he is a subjective pronoun that we can see from here, and he is doing the action, so we have used the subjective pronoun with it. Let's look at the next sentence. It says, they scored more runs than us. Now, why did we use they scored more runs than we in this case? Please understand, in this sentence, they did the action of scoring, right? I agree. Then you said they scored more. That also I agree. But we also scored something. Am I right or wrong? So this is the case of comparison. And what you guys need to remember is whenever there is a case of comparison happening, these have done the action. They have done it probably better than the others. But the others have also done the action, right? So we have also scored something at least. That is the reason why I'm using we, because we have done the action. If my pronoun has done the action, that means I'm bound to use the subjective pronoun. I cannot use the any other pronoun in that case. Now, us is not a subjective pronoun, it is we that we are supposed to use. Hence, I have applied we in place of us. Now, if you want to make it a bit easier for you to remember, what you can remember is that whenever the pronoun does the action, then we use the subjective pronoun, and whenever there is a case of comparison. In case if it is difficult for you to remember or it is difficult for you to see the light that why we have applied we in place of us, then you can remember that in these two cases it is imperative for me to use the subjective pronoun. Is that clear to all of you? So these were a few subjective cases. Now let's try to solve a few sentences. It says Ajay and she or her will probably buy a BMW. So Ajay and she or Ajay and her. Now because Ajay is doing the action of buying a BMW and she is also doing the action, right? So because the action is being done by the pronoun, we are supposed to use a subjective pronoun. Hence we have used she in this case. Next, it says, can he sing as well as I or me? Now, he sings fine. I also sing, right? So, this is a case of comparison. And just like I said, in case if it is difficult for you guys to see the light when it comes to the cases of comparison, you can just remember that, how if there is any kind of end up using the subjective pronoun. Next, it says it was me or I that gave you the book. Now, this pronoun, whichever pronoun I will use, has done the action of giving the book. So, since the action has been done by the pronoun, that means I'm supposed to use the subjective pronoun, right? So, that is the reason why we are using I. Now, I hope the first case is clear to all of you. Now, let's look at the next case which is there, which is the objective case. Now, what do we mean by the objective case? In objective case, what happens is that every sentence has a subject and the subject does the action. So, now that the subject is doing the action, who is the subject? I don't know. It could be a noun, it could be a pronoun. I just know for a fact that action is being received by who? The pronoun. So the pronoun is not doing the action. In this case, the pronoun is receiving the action. Okay. So in this case, the pronoun is not the doer, it is the receiver. So in this case, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be using objective pronoun. And what are objective pronouns? For example, me, him, her, you, us. So I have two internets at home, and my laptop keeps switching between the two. All right, so let's move ahead. So why did I tell you guys that this makes sense? Because over here, you and me are not doing any action. What we mean to say is between you and me, that means हम दोनों के बीच की बात है, right? So we are not doing any action, not receiving any action. We're just sitting there in the sentence. So even if the pronouns are just sitting there in the sentence, what are we supposed to use? We are supposed to use the objective pronouns. In this case, again, I have again. So coming back to this objective case, again, just like we discussed, we'll use it whenever the pronoun is receiving the action, and we will use it when the pronoun is just present in the sentence, not doing any action, not receiving any action, right? So that's when also I will use the objective case. Let's look at a few examples here. It says wait for Sia and I or me. Now in this sentence, this pronoun is not doing any action. The pronoun is being waited upon, so instead it is receiving the action. So we are supposed to use me in this case because objective. The chocolate box is for you and I or me. It will again be me because we are receiving the chocolate box. We are not doing any action. This teacher scolded we or us. So in this case, the subject is a teacher. Teacher has done the action of scolding, and who has received it? Us. So we have received it. So it should be us. In this case, I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, I hope objective case is also clear. Let's look at the last case that we have here. It's the reflexive case. What do we mean by reflexive case? Now, in this case, what we are supposed to do is there's going to be a subject, and every subject does what? It does the action. And again, in this sentence, who is the subject? Our pronoun. So pronoun is the subject, and pronoun in this sentence will be doing the action for, of course, obvious reasons, because it is the subject of my sentence. And then just because the pronoun is doing the action is also being received by the pronoun. That means the same pronoun is doing the action and the same pronoun is receiving the action. So that is the reason why we call it the reflexive case. I hope it is clear to all of you. So in this case, what are we supposed to use? We are supposed to use the reflexive pronouns. Reflexive pronouns are easy to remember. Why? Because they are all ending in with self. So for example, myself, herself, himself, oneself, ourselves, themselves, whatever. So these are your reflexive pronouns. Let's try a few sentences. It says I fell and hurt myself. So I fell and hurt myself. Why? Because I did the action and I only received it. So that's why we have used myself. He hurled himself at the burglar. So what do we mean by hurled? Hurled means to throw yourself at. When you throw yourself at someone, and since in this case the pronoun is he, so we will use himself. So he hurled himself, he threw himself at the burglar. The snake ate itself. Why? Because the snake has done the action and the snake itself has received it. So both the action and the is being done by the pronoun and is being received by the pronoun. So that is the reason why we are using the reflexive pronoun. I hope all these cases are clear to you, Wither, and the others who are present in the lecture. Let's try to solve a few sentences. I will give you guys 1 minute. Try these sentences and then we can discuss. All right, let's discuss these sentences. Let's look at the very first one. It says, after dinner, we or us all watched the evening news. Now, this pronoun, whoever it is, has done the action of watching the news, right? So the pronoun has done the action of watching the news. So what we will do, we will end up marking we because it's the subjective pronoun. The next sentence here is, this discussion is between him and her or him and he. I don't know, it automatically comes out to be her as well. Why? Because दोनों के बीच की discussion है. Not like they are doing any action, not like they are receiving any action. But we have discussed earlier, when the pronoun is not doing any action, not receiving any action, we are still supposed to be using objective pronouns. So that's what we are doing. Let's get the next one. It says, who or whom received the award for best actor last year. So that particular person has done the action of receiving the award. So it has to be who. And the next one says, the doctor who or whom won the UCLA. So over here again, the doctor has done the action of winning the UCLA. So again, it will be who, because it has to be a subjective case. Both of these were subjective case. Next, there was a conflict between he or him and the leader. Now, there has been a conflict between the two. So, eventually, it should be him and the leader, not he and the leader, because again, they are not conflicting. Had it been written dash and the leader were conflicting, then we would have chosen he and the leader were conflicting. But right now, it is there was a conflict between the two. So, they are not doing any action, they are not receiving any action, they are just there in the sentence, so we will mark that as him. No one dances better than she or her, so no one dances better than her. Won't be the case, it should be she because it's the case of comparison. And like we discussed, whenever there is a case of comparison, we are supposed to use the subjective pronoun. Let's get a few more sentences here. Again, you guys have a minute's time to look at it. Come on, guys, answer. Just explain you the concept. It's good for you guys to answer and get your logic tested. Okay, let's discuss. It says it was they or them who rang the bell. Now, in this case, this particular pronoun has done the action of ringing the bell. Since my pronoun has done the action, I will use they because that's the subjective pronoun. And let's get the next one. The next one says no one objects more than they or them. Again, in this case, the cases of comparison. Since the cases of comparison, we are supposed to use a subjective pronoun, so without any doubt, we'll end up using they. Next is let you and I or me try what we can do. So it will be let you and I or me. I know you guys must be feeling that it should be let you and I because that's what you have learned a while ago, but that's not the case. Why? Because in this case, before you and I try, so before you and I actually try, it's given let over here. So first someone has to let us. So because it some says let us, so we won't be using it now. Okay, so we won't be making it into a subjective pronoun. Now it should be an objective pronoun. It will be let you and me, right? So we will say let you and me try what we can do, right? Next question. It says the men each gave his or their approval. Now, in this case, had it been the men gave dash approval, then we would have used their because then it would have been plural in nature. But right now it says men each. So, because it says the men each, that is the reason why we will use the men each gave his approval. His is singular, so we'll be using his in this case. Next, the English play better soccer than we or us. So, English in this sentence are the Brits who are being talked about, and they play better soccer than we. Why? Because again, this is the case of comparison. So, that's how it is. All right, so we have a few more sentences here, a few more questions. Okay, we don't have those questions here. So, there are a few questions here. You can use them, you can try them quickly. If there are any more doubts, guys, you're welcome to ask. Okay, there is one student, Rohan. So Rohan is asking, ma'am, can you please explain rules for subject verb agreement once? Yes, we can do that for sure. Let's quickly try these questions first, or since I don't think many students are going for cases of pronouns right now, they're clear with the logic. We can move ahead and try subject verb agreement rules. So, when we look at subject verb agreement, you guys need to remember that the subject and the verb of the sentence are supposed to be in perfect harmony, agreement, or synchronization, whatever you may want to call it. So, so the subject and the verb of your sentence should be in a perfect agreement. The moment there is any kind of a disagreement, the sentence becomes grammatically incorrect. Right? So this is what we need to keep in mind. How do we go ahead with it? We'll look into a few rules. Now, when I look at the very first rule, the very first rule is the basic rule that you guys need to be aware of. So a singular subject gets a singular verb form and a plural subject gets a plural verb form. So SS is nothing but your singular subject and it gets the singular verb form, which is AS or ES form of the verb, and a plural subject gets the original form of the verb, which is a form of the verb. So, for example, a boy plays and boys play. So, this is the case here. Now, there are two subjects in the sentence. Let's say there are two subjects in a sentence, and we have to decide the verb form. So how we will decide the verb form, we will try to look at the fact that they are joined by an and. There are two subjects and they are joined by an and. I don't care which the possibility turns up, be it both of them are singular, both one is plural, one is singular, one is singular, one is plural, or both are plural. We have to make sure that the verb form should be plural in nature. So what we are doing over here is, what we are ensuring is that the verb form in the sentence should be plural in nature when the two subjects are joined by and. So for example, Trisha and Neha are coming to the party. Trisha's friends and Neha's friends are coming to the party. Trisha and Neha's friends are coming to the party. Trisha's friends and Neha's friends are coming to the party. So it really doesn't matter which group or which way you are getting it. Eventually, it is supposed to be plural in nature. Now we have a few exceptions. What are these exceptions? For example, law and order. Now, law and order is or are maintained by the police is the case. So now, law and order here are not two separate entities. Please remember, law and order will be conducted or treated as one single entity. Why? Because law and order together mean what you call Kanoon in Hindi, right? So law and order is maintained by the police. And then we look at bread and butter. Bread and butter again is the basic need of any human being. Why? Because bread and butter here is not again trying to ensure two separate entities like bread and butter. So what we mean to say is food. Bread and butter collectively mean what? Food. Food is the basic need of every human being. Now, the next question, the next sentence given here is an important one. It says the director and owner of this company is or are dead. Please understand, when we talk, so had there been placed before both the director and the owner, then we would have considered them as two different people. right? Then we would have used are did. But right now, since we know that they are one person, we are going to use only singular one. Let's get the next one. It says either or. So, or neither nor. So now we have again two subjects in the sentence. And these two subjects are joined by either or neither nor. Right? So in this case, either or neither nor, one ends up thinking that it should be either this or that. So because we feel that it should be either this or that, we end up marking this singular verb form. But that should not be the case. Why? Because we decide the verb form according to the subject next to or not. In this case, what we need to remember is that we completely forget about the first subject. We completely ignore the first sentence. I think there is some trouble with the internet. Quickly, I will look into it. Coming back to it. So, just like we discussed, we'll decide the verb from according to the second subject. Now, let's look at the example. It says either the bowl or the plates was a verb broken. Now, in this case, we have to decide the verb form according to the subject next to or not. In this case, the subject is the plates. So, the plates are what? They are plural in nature. The plates are plural, so we will mark were as the answer. Let's get the next one. It says neither the students nor the teacher. Now, which subject is next to not? The teacher. Teacher is singular, so we'll end up using was in this case. Let's get the next one. It says the king or the enemy. Win or wins the battle. Here we will use wins the battle. Why? Because the enemy here is the singular. So we just have to look at the subject next to or nor. The next rule is of transitions. Now again, you guys have two subjects, and this time the two subjects are joined by transitions. Now, what are transitions? Things like as well as, along with, accompanied by, including, together with. I'm sure you must have come across sentences like such in your life, and I'll be telling you guys how to make sure that you are able to get through with it, how to mark the correct verb form. So what happens in this case is we completely forget the second subject and we decide the verb form according to the first subject. So the first subject here is going to decide what should be the correct verb form. So if the first subject is singular, we mark it as singular, and if the first subject is plural, we mark it as a plural verb form. Right? So this is how we go ahead with it. Let's take a few examples. It says the minister, accompanied by his deputies, is or are coming for the inaugural. Now you might feel, ma'am, minister is coming, his deputies are coming. So, of course, the verb form should be what? Plural. But that is not the case. Again, just like we discussed, we really don't care what is written after the transition. What we care about is what's written before the transition. The before the transition, it's the minister who has been mentioned. So the minister is singular in nature, so we'll end up marking singular verb form. The next one says a man along with his daughters is or are going to the beach. Again, we will use is going to the beach. Why? Because the man here is singular. Next, the teacher as well as the students believe or believes in unity. So, the teacher as well as the students, the teacher is singular, so it should be believes in unity. I hope it is clear to all of you. Let's look at the next rule. The next rule is again the fact that we have two subjects. Two subjects have been given to you guys, and one subject is positive and one subject is negative. Now, how do we identify a negative subject in a sentence? Just look for the one next to not, no, or something like that. Next to the negation is the negative subject. Now, how do we decide the verb form? Remember to decide the verb form according to the positive subject. So, the positive subject is singular in nature, mark it as singular. If the positive subject is plural in nature, give it a plural verb form. So this is all that you guys need to remember. So let's look at the sentences which have been given to you guys. It says a pilot and not the passengers decide or decides the takeoff. So here we will mark the answer according to the positive subject. So the pilot is the positive subject over here, and the passengers are of course what, the negative subject, because they are next to uh, not. So the passengers should be negative. So how will we decide the verb form according to the according to the positive subject? The positive subject here is pilot. So pilot is singular. So we will mark decides as the answer, right? Now, no matter how incorrect it might look, so these are the two things that we have marked, and no matter how incorrect it might sometimes seem to use passengers decides and teacher decide. So because that doesn't make the plural usage and with the. All right, let's look at the next rule. The next rule is of a group or a classification or a categorization. Now, what we need to remember is whenever we are looking into a group or a classification, we have to just remember that we have to use we treat them as a singular subject and we use a singular verb form, because it really doesn't matter that they have multiple members in a group or a team or a category. They're all taking that doing that action collectively. So since they're doing that action collectively, we will give them the singular verb form. So looking into the first one, it says the jury deliver or delivers the verdict. So we will use delivers the verdict. Why? Because again we are treating it as one, no matter how many judges are there in a jury. So the next one says a student union believe or believes in unity. So it will be believes in unity. Why? Because again we are treating it as a singular subject. The discipline committee has or have ordered a probe in the matter. So now the discipline committee has ordered because committee is acting singular in this case. Next, now we have a few indefinite pronouns such as anyone, anybody, someone, somebody, no one, nobody, and everyone, everybody. All you need to remember is, guys, that they are always singular and they will get the singular verb form. We will use the as verb form with them. So, for example, everybody is invited to the party. Why? Because it might look like we are inviting everyone. We are inviting everyone, but at an individual level. So, everybody is invited to my party. Someone has been telling the land. No one realized his time is up. So we have used a singular verb form and a singular pronoun with these also, because eventually what we are dealing with is a singular subject, right? Now, there are a few pronouns such as none, all, most. They're all dual in nature. What do we mean by dual? That they can be both singular or plural depending on the context. So, we do not decide the verb form according to the pronoun, we decide it according to the subject next to it. So, for example, all of the work is or are complete, we will use it, we will decide the verb form according to the subject next to it. The subject here is work. So work is what, singular, we will use is. All of the classes are plural, so we will use were. Most of the books are plural, so we will use were again. Most of the magazine is singular, so we will use is spoiled. I hope it is clear. So it really depends on the context, the subject next to it, that which verb form we will select. Now, civics is or are my favorite subject. Civics is, even though all these subjects that I have mentioned here are ending in S, it really doesn't matter the fact that whether they are plural, because they are all singular. Civics is the name of one subject, hence you will select is. Mathematics is again one subject, so is. Burbs is the name of one movie, is. Politics is one issue, so is. Wuthering Heights is the name of a particular classical novel, so again is. I hope it is clear to all of you. Now, when we look at this rule, I hope you can see this, Rohan, that in this case, we have a few subjects which are again ending in S. Binoculars, spectacles, scissors, trousers, all are ending in S. But this time, unlike the last rule, they are not singular in nature. They are plural. Why? Because they come in a pair. So be it binoculars, it has two parts to it. Spectacles, it has two parts to it. Scissors has two parts to it, and so do trousers. So that's what we need to remember, and we will always give them a plural verb form because they come in a pair. So binoculars were lost during the expedition. Spectacles were broken by me. Scissors were used to kill that girl, and the trousers were torn from the bottom. Now we have a few here and there type sentences. What you need to remember is usually in sentences, what we see is that the subject comes first and then the subject does the action in the sentence. But when it comes to here and there type sentences, the subject does not come first. Subject instead follows the verb, follows the action. So do not get confused. Do not feel that here and there are deciding the verb form for you. Here and there are mere prepositions. They're just giving you a sense of direction. We have decided are here because of keys, was because it was by big white cat, is because one book is being talked about, are because we are talking about five theories. Now, in this rule, again, what we need to remember is no matter how plural these subjects might look, for example, $300, 3 kilometers, 3 hours, 3 liters of milk, no matter $10, no matter how plural they might look, they might not necessarily be plural. For example, the very first one says $300 is or are too much to pay for a dress. Now, $300 might look plural, but they are talking about the price for a dress, right? So particular dress ka amount is being talked about. So we are looking at a singular amount. So we will go for A's. 3 kilometers is the long run. Why? Because we are looking at a singular distance or a singular stretch, as you may want to call it. 3 hours is or are the time given for the test. You might feel it is more than 1 hour, ma'am. Why aren't we using is? Please remember that 3 hours is a singular time period being talked about in the sentence. Then it says 3 liters of milk is or are required to bake a cake. It will be 3 liters of milk is required because again we are looking at a singular quantity. Next is $10 was a verse scattered on the floor. Now please remember this is not a singular amount being given to a particular commodity. Here we were talking about the amount for a dress. So that is the reason why I wrote it is a singular amount. But in this sentence, we are talking about probably notes or coins which were scattered on the floor. So we won't be using singular now. So learn how to differentiate between the two. In the first case, we were denoting it as a singular amount to the particular commodity, but here we are not. So remember that. The next rule here is of fractions. Now fractions में आपको बस इतना याद रखना है बच्चे that the fraction has no role to play. Whatever is next to the fraction. So for example, pizza is singular. So we have given it a singular verb form. If it is plural, for example, pizzas, then we give it a plural verb form. For example, you can see here we are talking about a singular pizza. So we are using, and one piece is left, so we have used is. And when we're talking about many pizzas, let's say out of 9 pizzas, 3 are left. So of course 3 are left, so we are using a. But not every time you might be getting this particular image in front of you. So you just need to remember fraction का कोई रोल नहीं है. Fraction के next जो भी लगा है वो decide कर रहा है मेरा verb form. Let's look at the next one. Now we have already discussed when it is a kind of a, let's say when it is group or a classification given like majority, so we end up using the singular verb form. For example, the majority believes in unity. But when we are using it majority of voters, so now the subject is no longer majority, but it is voters. Voters are opting for nota, right? So in this case, we don't care about the majority anymore. What is the subject is the voters. Let's get the next one. It says a high percentage of parliamentarians is or are working against corruption. Now, high percentage is not working against corruption. The parliamentarians are. So that is how we have identified the verb form. Let's look at our last rule. So it says she is one of those girls who come back home on time or comes back home on time. What we need to remember is that she ke liye already is as a verb form has been written. And now the subject is no longer she. So I cannot use the singular verb form. Now we're talking about all those girls who come back home on time. Is that clear to all of you? Part of a whole. I like to call this rule part of a whole. So all we need to remember is जब तक part की बात हो रही है तो आप singular use करोगे and the whole is a plural subject, so use the plural verb form in that case. Next is Emirates Airlines. Now, since this is the name of a particular airline, so Emirates Airlines is one of those airlines. Now, we are talking about all those airlines which cultivate long haul flights. So, because we're talking about all those airlines which cultivate. Now, the last one is we is or are one of those companies. So, we obviously is plural. So, we are one of those companies. Again, talking about all those companies which conduct 5-round interview process, right? Now, we have a few sentences given here. Please try these. I hope your doubts are clear now, Rohan. I can't see many of you replying here. But please try these questions. I hope you got a good revision of all the subject verb agreement rules. We also tried revising cases of pronouns today. So please look into these sentences so that we can discuss. All right, let's discuss these sentences. It says several of my friends look or looks quite good. So several of my friends, there are several friends, they look quite good. So it should be plural. His boss and mentor tell or tells him to stay away from her. So his boss and mentor are the same person here because his has been used before the boss itself. So it has to be singular. So we'll use tells him to stay away from her. There is or are one small runway at the Pune airport. So we're talking about one small runway. So we have to use the singular usage. So it will be there is one small runway at the Pune airport. Neither the books nor the series was or were returned. So here we have to decide the verb form according to the subject next to nor. The subject next to nor are the series. Series are plural in nature. So we will use were returned. Next is the trekking coach as well as the boys are or is bathing in the lake. Now, in the case of transition as well as the transition, we decide the verb form according to the first subject. The first subject here is singular, so we will mark is as the answer. Police was or were not able to reach on time as usual. We have discussed this earlier. Police, although I'm sure many of you feel it is singular in nature, it is not, it's plural. So we will use police were not able to reach on time as usual. We have a few more sentences. You guys have 1 or 2 minutes to solve them. All right, let's discuss these. So it says each of his sisters is or are clever. What we mean to say is each sister is clever. Let's get the next one. It says one-fifth of the employees has or have resigned. So one-fifth of the employees. So again, like we said, fraction really doesn't matter. What matters is the main subject, which is being fraction. So employees have resigned. Some of the pocket money was or were used by Nina. So it should be some of the pocket money was used by Nina because it's singular. Here are Neha and Nikita because there is and here. Now, next is the lenses is or are expensive. So it will be the lenses are expensive because again they are coming in, they come in a pair. And statistics, sure, plural. Now let's try to solve a few more questions pertaining to subject verb agreement. You guys can try this. You have 2 minutes. All right, let's discuss. So let's get the first question. It says to take pay and then not to do work is or are dishonest, is dishonest because it has nothing to do with being plural. Cost of all these articles, now articles have not risen, cost has risen, so we'll use has. The jury were divided in their opinions because when The group is divided and not consolidated, so we'll use were. That night, every one of the boat's crew dash down with a fever. Now everyone is singular, so was down with fever. One or the other of those fellows has stolen the one or the other of those fellows. So other is again singular, has will come here. Next, the strain of all the difficulties and vexations and anxiety is more than he could bear, because the strain is more than he could bear. No news is good news, because news is ending in S but doesn't mean that it is plural. The accountant and the cashiers. Now, the has been mentioned in both, in front of both. So, were absconded, you have absconded. A good man and useful citizen. Now, there one person has passed away, because has been used just in front of good man. The famous juggler and conjurer, again the has been used only in front of it, was too unwell to perform. The Three Musketeers was written by Demas, or then because it's the name of one book, and each of the suspected men, each man was arrested, right? So that's all for now. I hope you guys have been able to understand how to go ahead with these type of questions, and I hope your doubts were clear. Only a few of you had asked your doubts, but for those who will be watching this video later, I hope I was able to collect clear your doubts. If you have any other confusions, you can reach out to me. And once again, I would like to remind you guys about the Unacademy subscription. Do not forget to subscribe, and you guys can use all these subscription plans which are available, with the 12th and the 24 months plan being the most lucrative ones. You can use my referral code, which is Nitika10, and that's all for the day. I hope you guys will log in tomorrow for your today's class, for your next class today at 6:30. We'll be taking a class on capsule course on cat RC, and today's class will deal with the types of questions which come on the examination, the second part of it. So do not forget to log in around that time. So this will start at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Hope to see you guys in the evening. That's all.